Web design is kind of a combination of your creativity and your technical skills. It's a little bit like a peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. It's two things, you don't think they would go together, they go together pretty well. There's a place in design for the artsy-fartsy, Starbucks-chugging design types just as well as the greasy-haired Cheeto-eating code monkeys.
Being a web designer, you really have a lot of freedom. You can work anywhere you really want. At a desk, outside, inside, in your bed, in a box with a fox, sitting on the toilet. You could even work on web design with your pants on the ground. Could work on web design on the moon, as long as there's internet and oxygen, yeah. Oxygen's kind of important. You could work on web design in a library, perhaps the study with a broomstick, or a revolver if you prefer, even with Colonel Mustard if you like.
Pop quiz. What does HTML stand for? Hypertext markup language? False. How to meet ladies. Chicks dig designers.
You know, as a web designer, you can work as your own boss. You don't have to worry about being fired unless you decide to fire yourself. But if you're your own boss, I would kind of rethink doing that. So you want to be a web designer. Cool. But there's a little thing that you may want to get familiar with before you start cranking out any old website. And that, my friend, is web standards.
Alright, imagine restaurants without standards. If restaurants didn't have standards, cooks and waiters wouldn't wash their hands. If cooks and waiters didn't wash their hands, they'd prepare our food, we would get lockjaw, and we would die.
Or imagine roads without standards. People would try to drive their segways out onto the road. And they would die. Standards set guidelines so that people can see all the content available on your webpage, particularly people with disabilities.
Standards say you should provide alternative text to images on your website. That way, somebody who's visually impaired could use a screen reader program like JAWS or Orca to know what is being displayed on your webpage. Being standards compliant means that your website will be able to be read or parsed by indexing services like Google. This means if somebody searches for your website, you're more likely to come up in the results. That sounds kind of dorky, so let's just say that robots working for Google will be able to understand your website.
So that's why you should follow internet standards. Unless you really have something against blind people or robots, there's no reason not to follow standards. And plus, there's really nothing that can beat the adrenaline rush of passing that validation check on your website.